Welcome to Fearless with Jason Whitlock. I'm Jason Whitlock, your host. Happy Friday. Special edition of Fearless with Jason Whitlock. Man, we have a superstar. We have a celebrity in the house. We got all those Pro Football Hall of Famers that come in. We've had RFK come in. We had John Stockton, but Kirk Cameron, people from my age, of my generation, man, do we know this guy. What an incredible actor. He was a part of a great show, great family show called Growing Pains. And now he is one of the most authentic evangelical Christians that takes on and is involved in the culture war and has been for years. And he's really been somewhat of a role model for myself in terms of, you guys have listened to me on the show talk about the decisions I made to leave Los Angeles and to walk away from corporate television. And you make that kind of decision and people start telling you, hey, this reminds me of this, or so-and-so, do you know this person? And then you guys know Dave Shannon, Chocolate Knox, that comes on the show as a contributor on Fearless. He is very good friends with Kirk Cameron, and he's been trying to connect Kirk Cameron and I for more than a year. Well, now Kirk Cameron's here in studio. Round of applause for Kirk Cameron joining the Fearless Army.
We finally did it.
Yeah, we finally
connected. I've been looking forward to this moment.
Yeah,
really.
so have I, because I really want you to unpack your story, because I think it's a very important story and something I'll be fascinated in. I lived in Los Angeles from 2010 to 2020 and worked for ESPN and Fox Sports and had a lot of success, and but just realized in order for me to walk my Christian walk and to say what I really wanted to say, I had to disconnect from corporate television and become more independent. And that's something you decided a long time ago at a young age. I decided it as a middle-aged or old man.
Well, you know, when you get to be our age, and I'm not saying you're as old as I am, but you know,
I'm older than you.
You're older.
Yes.
Get out of here.
Mm-hmm. I'm 56.
Well, you know what? You're getting closer to your prime, is what it is. You're like a fine wine. You're just getting better with age, and every trip around the sun, I'm just grateful. I get to do this again.
I'm just scared, Kirk, to be honest with you. I'm just so scared, like all the dumb things that I did, I'm just trying to correct so that when I meet my maker, I can say, God, look what I did the last 10, 15, 20 years. Don't judge me by all that silliness.
Well, I'm encouraged by you. My mom and dad told me about you. This is a couple of years ago, I think it was. And you got to meet this guy. Do you know this guy, Jason Whitlock? And they were like, I can't wait for you to meet him. I mean, he just says it like it is. He is so authentic, and I think this guy has a strong, solid faith in God. And I thought, I want to meet him. And then our friend finally connected us. So thanks for having me on your show.
Kurt, why are you in Nashville?
Well, I love Middle Tennessee in general, and it is the autumn. So God is repainting the leaves in all of the hills. It is gorgeous here, and I have two kids that live here. A third about to move here, so it's kind of a home base for me. And the Jason Whitlock show tapes here in Nashville, so I'm excited to be here.
Well, we're honored to have you, and so maybe I'm sure a lot of people in my audience already know your story, but to be honest with you, I don't know it in full detail. You know, I certainly watched Growing Pains, and it's fun not to be, but it's like I remember Alan Thicke more, and maybe it's because his son became this soul singer, Robin or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I wasn't, until Knox started telling me, I wasn't aware of what you did as a young person, giving your life to Christ, and then started making decisions that on the outside maybe cost you opportunities and money in Hollywood, but kept you in line with your faith. Can you walk us through some of that? Yeah.
Sure, I'd be happy to. My faith story blows me away too, because I was an unlikely recipient of God's kindness and His mercy. I was an atheist for most of my life. I didn't go to church, didn't grow up hearing about God. My dad's a school teacher. we talked about everything but God. At Christmas time, I had no idea why people had that little baby in that little manger with hay and the wise men. What did they do?
Really, you didn't know?
Did not. We never talked about it. It was Santa Claus.
This is growing up in California, Los Angeles?
In Los Angeles, California, every Sunday morning. I guess people went to church. I don't know why adults believed in fairy tales, but at that time, we just went to the beach on Sunday mornings and went surfing, body surfing. So I had no interest in faith in God, but I had a lot of interest in this pretty girl that was on the set of Growing Pains. She invited me to meet her family one weekend and gave me the address for me to drive to, and when I showed up, it was at a church parking lot. So I went into church as an atheist with my baseball cap and some glasses on, trying not to be recognized because I was the star of Growing Pains at about 17 years old. And I heard this message from this preacher about the creator of the universe and how he made the cosmos and he made every piece of your DNA, and he's holy and his character is pure. And he talked about rebellion and sin in the garden with the serpent and the need for redemption and his law and the day of judgment and heaven and hell and the cross and the resurrection. And Jason, I had no idea what he was talking about. And when I left the church, I asked this girl's dad, because he was trying to like, get me to believe. And I was asking him questions. How could you believe things like this? A virgin giving birth, a man rising from the dead, an old book. And he answered a lot of questions and then finally encouraged me to pray to God myself. Well, as an atheist, I didn't know how, but I remember sitting in my sports car parked on the side of the road, thinking about the fact that one day I would die, and if I found out that there was a heaven, I knew I wouldn't be going. And so I thought I had nothing to lose by at least asking. So I closed my eyes and I just said, God, if you're there, I want to know, would you please say something or show me the way? Make me the person that you created me to be. And I didn't have any ethereal experience of a vision or feel the Holy Spirit come in through the air conditioning vents, but I had the sense that maybe I was on to something important. And I told a friend, he gave me a Bible, I started going to church, and as I believe God worked on me, he opened my eyes and brought me to a place where I recognized that the cosmos, the universe, the construction of the human body, and everything that is commonplace in the world is nothing short of a miracle. The fact that we're having this conversation right now, it defies what we could possibly comprehend. And I decided that I wanted to follow Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. And that was the beginning of my faith journey. And I can honestly say that of all the things that have ever happened to me, there's nothing more important, there's nothing more significant, and nothing for which I'm more grateful than God being so kind to open my eyes and save me out of my atheism.
Were you, at that time, you're 17, you're the star of a television show, you're making good money, you're popular. Did you feel lost or empty? Because
I didn't really feel lost or empty because I had all these friends sitting there in the audience every single week. People were asking me for my autograph. My bank account was full. So I don't think I felt lost or empty, but there were questions I couldn't answer. Like, is this all there is? Fame, money, popularity, success? What happens when you die? How did we get here in the first place? I mean, if you had said to me, hey, Kirk, you see this laptop, what are the chances that there was no designer, that this just all fell together as glass, plastic, and metal over 1 billion years with no result in mind? It just happened. I would say, you've had a lobotomy, something's wrong, no one will believe that. And yet the human brain, or just my ears, have more of a complex design that point to purpose than this laptop computer does. So how is it that I could have so much faith that nothing times nobody equaled everything as an atheist, and not just come to the simple conclusion that information has a programmer, that design has a designer. And once I began to go down that road, life began to really make sense.
So to me, what I hear is that you were a naturally curious person.
Very curious. I like to learn. Maybe it's because my dad was a public school teacher. but I like to understand why things are the way they are and how they work.
And so that curiosity, I tell people all the time, if you have any curiosity at all and you have any real interest in truth, it's going to eventually lead you to God. That
I think so too.
And so for me, having been raised in the church and then going off into the world and going off to college and then going off into a successful career, I certainly lost my way, but I've always had an interest in truth. As a journalist, it was truth, truth, truth. And the more I kept looking for truth, I was like, oh man, I had this grandmother, Mama Lovey, that brought me to church and I was like, oh, this is what Mama Lovey was talking about. I kept running into instances where I go, oh, this is what they were telling me in church. And then eventually, after, just figuring out like, man, this money and a cute girl, there's got to be more than this. And that's what compelled me to like really start taking and I went through some struggles. In 2013, ESPN and the whole leftist movement did an incredible smear campaign on me. And that's what really hammered like, oh man, you're not going to survive without Jesus.
And Jason, if I could just say, I've got this wise old owl in my life. Everybody needs a Gandalf.
Yeah.
Everybody needs a Mr. Miyagi, a somebody. And he's helped me to remember that smear campaign that happened to you, that was all part of God's loving and wise plan for your life, because I know what it did. It developed character in you. It developed more courage and more authenticity and convictions for you to be who God made you to be at this moment to accomplish what His plans are for you that I bet you wouldn't have had if it weren't for the smear campaign. And He knew it was coming ever since you were in your mother's womb.
Yes, and I needed it because I needed the humility and I needed to quit serving myself in every way. Look at my stomach. That's from me serving myself. That's from me being in a disobedience to God. And, my sexual lust and all these different, it was all about serving me. And getting humbled in that way made me realize, no, I got to serve Him. That's my only protection. Or this rigged up smear campaign is going to do some real damage to me. And I just figured out like my only protection is God. And so I just started serving Him, and it's been awesome. But I'd certainly turned down some money, but do you feel like, and I've read some stuff on you this morning, do you feel like you sacrificed anything by choosing the path you did? I mean, you're a tremendous actor. You could have been at the top of the Hollywood acting machine and, maybe making 20, 30 million a movie or whatever, or who knows, for doing a TV show. Did you feel like you sacrificed anything?
Yeah. I don't think I'm that good. 20, 30 million. I mean, that's Leonardo DiCaprio level. But no, so I don't know what he makes actually. He started out on Growing Pains, though. A lot of people don't know that. He started out on Growing Pains
I did not know
as
that.
my little brother on the show. We adopted him into our family. He was a little homeless kid we found in the janitor's closet, and we brought him into our house. Anyway, that's another whole story. No, I don't feel like I missed out on anything. Are you kidding? Jason, it's just like what you said. We have so much in common, even though we never met each other. But I know what happened to you because the same kindness of God that righted you at those moments where you were going wrong, righted me when I was going wrong. So I don't want to think where I would be if I had been left going down the road that I was. All the things that you talked about are common to all of us. We're looking for a sense of identity, of purpose, of value, of importance. I want to accomplish great things and people to remember me. I want to just milk this cow of life for every drop of milk that I can get out of it. All the pleasure, all the comfort, all the riches. And then you realize that that's all upside down. And true joy and true peace and true value comes from realizing that God made you to know Him and to love Him, and He values you for who you are, not based off of your performance, not based off your social status or your bank account. And He demonstrated that through this self-sacrificing love. And if I connect to that, now I understand who I am, why I'm here, and now I can begin to love other people. That brings me the treasure of the world. So what I value is not just when I get to heaven, pie in the sky. I've got steak on the plate right now because I can work together with you to amplify light and bring good into an evil world. I've got a relationship with my wife now, 32 years, and it's getting better. I've got 6 children who don't hate me. They still like to hang out with me. And I think, man, this is the gift that many actors, celebrities, rich entrepreneurs would kill for and give up all their money to achieve. A wife who loves them for who they really are, children that still love to come home and visit them, and a sense that when they go to sleep at night and put their head on the pillow, that they have clean hands and a pure heart before God. And most people don't have that. And it requires you getting on your knees and saying, this is about you, not about me. What do you want me to do? And so I feel like I won the lottery. I don't feel like I missed out.
Tired of someone else telling you where to go when you have a medical need? Are you ready to take control of your health care? Samaritan Ministries could be the solution you're looking for. They connect hundreds of thousands of Christians across the nation who come together through prayer, encouragement, and financial support when a medical need arises. It's not insurance, and you're not limited to restrictive networks. Say you have a medical need. You don't have to check and see what hospital is in your network or be concerned about the doctor being in network too. No, you go to the hospital, you choose, and don't give a second thought as to what's in network and what's not, because with Samaritan Ministries, you're in control of your health care. Afterwards, fellow members pray for you and send money directly to you to help you pay your medical bills. And when they have a medical need, you'll do the same for them. That's what biblical health care sharing looks like. Check it out today at SamaritanMinistries.org/fearless. So you grow up atheist, and so I would imagine your mom and dad were atheists as well?
It's interesting. I think my dad and his parents, being educators and school teachers, they just, for whatever reason, they weren't religious. My mom, as a little girl, used to go to Sunday school, and she raised her hand to ask Jesus into her heart when she was little, but it never really matured beyond that. So when I started going to church, she was so excited. In fact, my parents were separated at the time, and she had moved out of the house. And when I started going to church, my dad started going to church and taking the kids to church, thinking it might help him with his depression over my mom leaving. And when she found out that the whole family was finally going to church without her, she said, no way. I've always wanted us to go to church, but you didn't want to, so I'm coming with you. And that actually brought my parents back together, healed their marriage, and we went to church as a family. So that was an awesome thing.
So, you have a sister that was on Full House.
That's right.
And she grew up like you. Did your move into Christianity, did she follow your lead, or was she already doing that as well?
I've asked Candace this question, and I think she would tell you that she wasn't just following in her big brother's footsteps, but she saw a movie that I did called Left Behind, about the return of Christ or the rapture.
The original one?
The original one,
so
yeah.
This is 1994.
Yeah. So somewhere around there. And there's this terrifying scene of a pastor, a minister in a church, who has his whole congregation disappear, and he's still left standing here. He missed out because he was an imposter. He was a hypocrite. Externally, he was religious. Internally, he was a pagan. And she thought to herself, man, I wonder if that would happen to me. And she got reading some good books and came to that place of saying, I want to make sure that my relationship with God is authentic. And I think that's when it all kind of came together for her.
You know, that's one of the things I'm learning, and most of my family, Christians, and further along in their journey than I was previously. But I have seen in family and friends, they've been blown away by my walk and my pivot. I was a guy, Vegas and strip clubs,
All the things,
all that stuff, and people, my friends, not to out any of my friends, but it's like I was the guy that if someone got married, Whitlock's got to throw our bachelor party. He's got to. It's in. And now they see me now, and they're so happy for me, and I've had an influence on them as well, sparked conversations in them that we used to not have. And so, your step towards God, you can bring other people along with you or spark something in them. People have so many fake conversations. Mm-hmm. And then once you get vulnerable, it invites other people to be vulnerable and tell you what they're really thinking. And you can have a tremendous impact on people. And that's why I'm so happy with what you're doing out in Hollywood. And so walk me through this, because now I moved out to LA in 2010 to get further involved with Fox Sports and then ESPN and further along in television. Do you think, go back to your heyday in the mid 80s, late 80s, was Hollywood secretly demonic then and we just didn't know it?
If it was, I didn't know it.
Yeah.
And I was only 17 years old when I was really in the heyday of the 1980s and Growing Pains success. And I was surrounded by a good group of people. Alan Thicke, Joanna Kearns, the crew, they really protected us like their own kids. So I think I was protected from a lot of that, and also by my own parents. But yeah, I think you go back.
There were no executives trying to do anything creepy with you, or
not with me personally, but I know that there were parties and all kinds of things that went on. There were some of my peers at the time went to a lot of these parties. And I don't know these names: Corey Feldman, Corey Haim, Alyssa Milano, and others. There were a lot of these parties for teenage kids. Well, now you're hearing stories about what was going on at those parties. Most of them I never went to, and funny, it was because at that time that's when I was interested in this faith stuff. And I was with this girl who took me to church, and so we were doing other things like Bible studies. I was singing Kumbaya around a campfire while, someone's grooming children over here, but I wasn't really in the midst of all of that. But I think, as with all things depraved and wicked, it matures and it grows roots and it gets bigger and it gets nastier. And I think now we're beginning to really understand just how wicked it can be. It probably was going on when I was there. I just wasn't exposed to it. And
so now, not to repeat what you just said, but I want you to elaborate. It does feel like out of the closet, hey, we're here to promote the devil, and we're going to shove sexual stuff down your kids' throats through cartoons, through commercials. We're going to make you, because again, my brother's got kids, and I used to always say to him, like, I'd watch shows, and I'm like, oh my God, now my brother's got to talk to his kids about this.
Yeah.
It's just it seems like it's now just totally out of the closet that hey, we're here on some wickedness.
That's right. Where my mind always goes is why? Why? Who would do that to kids? What's the agenda? What's the end game? Why are they doing this? They certainly have got to know that, look, if you want to go to some stripper club or some drag queen thing, or you want to do it as an adult, fine, but why would you go after the kids? You know that's not good for their little impressionable minds. So that's another conversation if we want to talk about that. But I've been kind of on the right in the ring with some of that stuff, as I've been going to public libraries that have held drag queen story hours for children, reading inappropriate material to them and even exposing themselves to children. And then when I try to read a children's book about love, joy, kindness, and self-control, those libraries have shut me down and said, no, our values don't align with yours. we're not interested in your messaging. And they make me look like I'm the guy who's trying to infuse their children and community with bad values. So what has happened? Evil has become good in their eyes, and good has become evil to them. And this is the telltale sign that we are headed for a fall and a giant crash if we don't reverse course. And you wonder, why would anybody do this to their own children, their own country, their own
What's
their
your
own
answer?
community? Well, I think there's people who profit off of the racism industry, off of the poverty industry, off of the abortion industry, and off of destroying the family and the church, which will effectively take down Western civilization and liberty to allow other groups of people who want to essentially just have ultimate control over other people.
Let me, and I should have asked you this before the show because I don't know what your comfort level is, but I want to take you down a path where, because I don't care, but they'll call me a conspiracy theorist for the things that I believe. And you can tell me
if this gets too sketchy, I know where the door is. I can run out of here.
So, I sit around and wonder, like, it seems like Freemasonry is in control. And Freemasons believe in God, and I'll take the Masons out of it, but although that's what I believe. But there are people that worship the devil. They fully believe in God, but they believe the path to success is through the devil, and the path of the ultimate pleasure and being who you think you are and all that. And it's all the stuff that I reject and have figured out, like, no. God has a plan for me. It's not about me. It's not do without wilt. It's not Aleister Crowley. But there are people that believe that. And that when I look at the Hollywood industry and I look at the music industry and all of it, that's what I see is like a group of satanic people that, and again, that I believe are involved in Freemasonry that are just promoting individual human beings as their own gods. And when I look at people saying, I feel like a woman, I'm gonna have surgery. That's you. I know better than God. God gave me a bat and balls, but I'm gonna cut it off, and you're being your own God. And that's what I see is like this whole worship of man. Idolatry is just out of control. Our own idolatry is out of control, and it's the ultimate sin. Idolatry. It's at the root of every sin. And that's what I just see, a godlike complex, people that believe in God, but believe, Satan and my own self, I'm smarter than God.
Yeah, I love this. You're like a pinball machine. You're just going all over these different Freemasonry and God, and we're talking about bats and balls and sports, and I'm thinking, wow. So,
this is the kind of stuff me and Chalk Knox talk about.
I like it. And he's got a majestic beard, too. You need to grow one of those, because I think it'd look great on you.
Cannot do it.
So, number one thing I would say, if anybody's watching this, what camera is people looking at me at? Probably this one right here. If you're involved in Freemasonry, you're not free, you're actually in bondage. There's no freedom in false systems, and Freemasons actually are not in charge. They're not in control. God is in control, and he can use Freemasons or any false system as a dog on a leash to bark and bite and nip at the heels of his own children to get them to go where he wants them to go. So when I think about the book of Job, boy, it sure looked like to Job and all his friends that Satan was in charge. But really, God had him on a leash. And he said, here, you can take away his health, you can take away his home and his riches and his family, but no more. You can't do anything other than that. And sure enough, in the end, we could see that no one is in control but God. He's sovereign. So I think that, my grandfather was a Freemason, and he had his rabbit's foot in his apron, and he was buried with all that stuff. But if I had a real conversation with him, and I did, it was not the kind of masonry that we're seeing today with a lot of this demonic stuff and all of that. To him, it was a bunch of guys who got together and they put their hand on the Bible and they wanted to do good things in their community as contractors and masons and other sort of guys that worked with their hands. And as a lot of things, organizations can get hijacked and infiltrated, just like the Republican Party, just like the Democratic Party. It's not our grandparents' party anymore. America has been infested with termites from other neighborhoods of Marxism and socialism and all that stuff. And that free constitutional republic that is our foundation and framework has been compromised. So at the end of the day, I would say that we don't need to fear the devil because he may roar, he may prowl around, but I know that he was dealt the death blow at the cross. His head has been crushed and he's slinking off to the lake of fire. And I don't fear the devil. I'm not afraid of losing the country. I'm not afraid of losing the culture. I know that the gospel has victory written all over it, and times of revival have always come historically during times of moral collapse, spiritual decline, political corruption. About every 50 years, I think we're due for another one. And I think guys like you who are speaking the truth in love, authentically, are raising up a whole new generation in God's loving army of compassion. And they're beginning to speak up, stand up, and I feel the rumblings of revival. All the places that I go, people are getting it. Their eyes are opening.
We've been talking to you about big tech censorship and telling you about a major step Blaze Media is taking to declare independence from big tech and ensure we keep bringing you the truth no matter what. Well, if you go to Blaze Media's website, theblaze.com, right now, you will see it's been totally overhauled. You'll see news articles, opinion, analysis, lifestyle, and tech commentary. But what you will not see are those obnoxious, annoying ads that are on virtually every other website. Here's why this is such a big deal. Most people don't realize that by having those ads on our website, Google was able to send bots to scour any content they deemed unsafe for advertisers. After finding something they didn't like, they demand we remove the ads from the article or else have our entire website demonetized. We dealt with this for a long time and time again. And here's the worst part. After forcing us to remove ads from problematic articles, Google buried those articles so deep in the search results that they became nearly impossible to find. Google was essentially using its ad revenue as a cudgel to either force us to toe the leftist line or bury the unsafe content so no one could find it. That's why we're walking away from ads on our website. The decision to go ad-free will cost us millions, and we did not make it lightly. We didn't make this decision lightly, not at all. None of this is possible without you, and we're counting on you to make sure we can continue to bring you unfiltered truth. We're taking a gamble by investing in more quality content, including expert analysis, insightful commentary, and authentic investigative reporting. Visit theblaze.com, explore the all-new ad-free experience, and see for yourself how we're standing up against suppression and prioritizing independent journalism that speaks for you. Go to theblaze.com, become a subscriber. It's only $3 a month. Help us fight back in this information war. I hope you're right. That's what I want to be a part of that. And you know, you sound just like Dave Shannon, Chalk Knox, and other people I've surrounded myself.
We drink the same whiskey.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah. Well, but you guys are more optimistic than I am. And I'm 56. Dave is probably early
Shannon?
40s.
Yeah,
Dave
he's a young pup.
He's early 40s. And so I'm just so blown away at like, how did we get here?
Yeah.
Because my childhood was so optimistic. I'm born in 1967, 1 year before MLK is assassinated. And I was a part of a generation that was like, oh man, we're gonna do some great things, and there's gonna be all this racial healing and all this opportunity. And my high school, we had a very successful football team that nationally ranked, and it was racially integrated. And so we had so much optimism in our generation. And now I look at all the division, and I look at like, man, they're having black graduation ceremonies and segregated this, and they're calling this progress. It just blows my mind.
Yeah.
And it causes cynicism to creep in, and I'm always having to fight it.
Yeah, it's like the car is in reverse. We're going backwards, guys. What's going on? But here's what I believe is true with all of my heart. The reason we can have optimism about America and this culture is because God's already demonstrated to you, Jason, how He does this kind of thing. He did it in your own life. You just told me. I just heard your story. You grew up in this time of optimism before MLK, and things are getting better. You had Grandma Lovey, what's her name?
Mama Lovey.
Mama Lovey. She was taking you to church. You had a promising start, and then what happened? You got full of yourself, in your own words, to where you were going down a road and the car was in reverse. You were going backwards toward sex, drugs, money, all the kind of things that eventually led you to a place where you're like, man, what am I doing? I can't. Now my eyes are opening up, and I say, I got to go a different way. And you turned to God. I think a nation can do the same thing. We started out as a shining light on a hill, a beacon of liberty to the world. And now we've gotten away from the principles we grew up with when we were young as a nation. And every time we stray away from those things, we got civil wars, we've had racism, we've had economic disaster, we've had foreign affair problems. But this may be the very thing that opens the eyes of a nation to say, I got to go a different direction. It's happened before in 2 great awakenings. I think we're ready for a third. That's how it can happen. And it all depends on whether or not we're willing to come to our senses.
It's amazing to hear you say that living in California with Gavin Newsom and just all the policies there. There's a discussion about abortion up until birth, maybe even after birth. It's amazing to hear, but maybe in all that depravity out in California, it makes you understand the necessariness of God.
That's right. We've hit rock bottom in California. There's only one way to go, and that's up. And I think when you see this, I don't know. I think it's your mindset. It's how you think about the world. And if you have stinking thinking, as my pastor likes to call it, you could have the best opportunities in the world and you'll ruin them. You could also have the right mindset and be given the worst circumstances, and you will rise and you will flourish. Think of Daniel in the lion's den. Think of Joseph being abandoned by his brothers, thrown in a pit, sold as a slave. He winds up in prison, and then he becomes the guy that saves the world, second in command in Egypt. Why? It's the way he thought about it, and it's specifically the way he thought about God. My daughter has she's a poet herself, and she has a piece of poetry written on a paper taped to her wall, and it says she said, the same sun in the sky, the same sun that hardens clay melts wax. It all depends on what you're made of. The same sun that hardens clay melts wax because it depends on what you're made of. And so you could be in California and you can be all about goodness, righteousness, loving the Constitution, and fearing God if you're made of the right stuff. And you could be in the Bible Belt right here in Nashville, and you could just be a drunk, horrible, wicked person. It all depends on what you're made of. And I think We start out being made of the same stuff, and that's selfishness and pride, and then God can change that when you turn your heart to Him in faith.
What's your plans? What's your next big adventure? I know you're writing books. You just written another book.
Well, this is a bucket item list right here, being on the Jason Whitlock Show. My parents are going to be more excited about this than anybody. But I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, I was at what's the next big thing you're going to be driving or initiative?
I never know what's right around the corner, but I just wrote a children's book called The Fox, the Fair, and the Invention Scare. And it's all about loving your enemies. And this is the third kids' book that I wrote. The first one was about the fruit of the Spirit, love, joy, kindness. The second one was called Pride Comes Before the Fall, about humility. And we released that during Pride Month. And we've had so much pushback. We've had so many people try to stop us from bringing wholesome values into public libraries that I had to come out with a third book about loving your enemies. And with all the war going on in the world, with the Middle East on fire, Ukraine and Russia on fire, United States politics having a cutthroat mentality, our kids are watching this. Your nieces and nephews are watching this. What are they going to inherit if we don't give them a new strategy besides kill them before they kill you? And so I wrote this book, and it was inspired by a story that blew me away. If I could just take a minute and share this story. I was in Washington, D.C., and we were at a Restore America rally. There was an older couple that came up to the microphone and explained their gut-wrenching story of how their son was murdered by a gang member in an inner city, and how it was their strong faith in God and in His goodness that kept them going. Then they introduced a 25-year-old man who came up to the podium and explained when he was young, he got into a gang, committed a violent crime, was thrown into prison, and during visiting hours one day, he was visited by that couple that just introduced him. And they explained to him that they were the parents of the young man he had murdered. And they came to tell him that they did not hate him, that they had been praying for him, that they even have found love in their heart for him, and that there was an opportunity for a new beginning through faith and forgiveness. And when that young man got out of prison, they legally adopted him as their son, and he was there with their same last name in their family, explaining to us that the power is in forgiveness and in loving your enemies. That's not natural. Who does that? I mean, it's hard to believe that that's an even true story, but it is. And so if we can communicate to children what Jesus said, which is, you've heard others say, love your neighbor and hate your enemy, but I say to you, love your enemy, do good to those who hate you, and you'll be like your Father in heaven, who causes the sun to rise on the evil and the good, and the rain to water the crops of the righteous and the unrighteous. Be perfect in love, like your Father in heaven is perfect. And it changes everything. That's what my book's about.
So, it sounds amazing. The story you told is definitely amazing. There's the whole loving your enemies thing. What do you say to what do you say to the LGBTQ and the people that say, hey, the way to love them is to be more accepting?
Yeah.
And I reject that. And most people, again, I think the way to help anybody, to help me with my weight problem, is to tell me the truth. Hey, you got a weight problem. You shouldn't eat that. And to tell no, that's not what God wants for you. That's not what your body's designed for. But people see that as not being loving. Remember, Kirk, love is love now. And so if you love a dog, if you love a mouse, whatever, it's all the same.
Yeah. It's the dumbest thing I ever heard. Right? I believe, I'm with you. I share the view that love, if it's not married to the truth, is not love. That's just deception. You're just making somebody comfortable as they destroy themselves. So that's why the Bible always says, speak the truth in love. So again, over and over and over, the scriptures are the best lens through which to view all of life. It's funny, Target's having this problem right now. I'm sorry, not Target. Well, they've had their problems too, as well as Bud Light and others, but now it's Scholastic Books. And I know this because I'm in the book business here. And there are books that have very inappropriate, sexually explicit, pornographic material being put on the front shelves for children to read. And people in the community have said, hey, we don't play like that. We want those things. And so they said, okay, we'll move them to a special section that's sort of behind a wall of wisdom and only adults go there. Well, now the left gets crazy at them for compromising with the conservatives and the traditionalists. So now they want to move it back to the front shelves so that they don't get hammered by their own crew. And so you see, when you compromise what's true and what's right, you're always going to find yourself stuck between a rock and a hard place. So what's the best thing to do? Man, God gave you a conscience, and it lines up with nature, it lines up with the Bible, and when you follow that, things go well. Now, that doesn't mean everybody's going to agree with you, but that's why you need to be strong. That's why you need to be part of the fearless army. But you got to do it in love, which means speaking the truth because you care about people more than agendas.
You've got 6 kids. Did y'all homeschool? Did you send them to public school?
We did a little of everything. We started out with our 6 children, who were all 1 year apart, by the way. So we had 6 kids under 7. So my wife is an angel. She is amazing. We started out going to a great little private school. We didn't like the options available after that. And we thought home education was just for crazy people. People who didn't care about educating their kids, keep them at home, barefoot and never learning anything about science. That couldn't be further from the truth. Once we realized that you have a far better education, basically doing almost anything than public education right now, we started to home educate our kids. It was wonderful. Some of them went back to a private school for sports, for some of the opportunities that these schools had. Others graduated in the home education network that we were a part of. And we found that we were always connected with our kids relationally. We didn't have to worry about them learning sex moves in the 3rd grade or coming home, a different gender, because we were there with them. And I think, again, we've got to understand that Dewey and Horace Mann and others in the public education system are Marxists who are looking to oust God and oust the family in order to turn your children into obedient little statist lemmings for the purposes of creating a different type of a society and a country. God gave your kids to you, plain and simple. He didn't give them to the government. So don't give that sacred opportunity and duty away to other people who just want to use them. Find the best system that works for you. You got one shot at parenting. Don't blow it.
Did your kids go to college?
One of my kids he's going to college here in Middle Tennessee. Others have gotten jobs at organizations where they're doing things. We're so proud of them. Some of my kids got scholarships to go to colleges, but decided they didn't want to waste 4 years of their life in an institution and rather travel and learn languages and experience cultures and write poetry. So our kids are so different. 4 of them are adopted. 2 natural born. We actually adopted our first 4 kids, then had 2 kids after that. And so we've got this wonderful symphony of talents and strengths and character qualities and
what ages when you adopted them?
They were all only months old, so they were babies. And we've got 3 boys, 3 girls. And man, it's just, it's a beautiful picture of what diversity can look like in a family. We got black, white, Hispanic, boys, girls, and yet what brings us together is living authentically and loving one another. And all those differences just make it better, not worse. They make it better. It doesn't bring division. It brings dimension to what love can really look like.
Is there anything that you wanted to talk about that maybe I haven't asked you about, Kirk?
Well, I'm excited to meet you. I've already told you that, though. My parents are excited that I'm meeting you. I've told you that. And lastly, I think I would like to give people something that they could be a part of if they're saying, I'm watching the world go to hell, my country is on fire, what can I do, at least to invest in the next generation? Here's something. Support what Brave Books is trying to do by writing children's stories with a pro-God, pro-America value. And they've got dozens of them. I've written a few, and you can get my book for free if you go to bravebooks.com and just sign up for their Book of the Month Club for your grandkids or for your kids. And a new book comes every month to their front door, and it's an investment in not only their faith and morality, it's an investment in the future of America, because in 30 years, they're going to be running the place. bravebooks.com.
Kirk, thank you so much for visiting with us. Really appreciate it. Now that I know you come back here all the time, you got to give me your number. We can go out to dinner at some point. Love to hear some more of your story. That's Kirk Cameron. This is your Friday edition of Fearless. Have a great weekend. We'll play tomorrow, and we'll see you next week.
Nothing in life like freedom. Came like a fighter, striking like a ladder, making all these moves for freedom. I want freedom. No negotiation, my sister, no relation. We all just wanna have freedom. Sitting on a corner, never been alone. I'm breaking my back for freedom. Blessed, we are living, get back. We are receiving, all deceiving. We all wanna be free. We want freedom. I wanna be